Alrighty, how's it going, folks? Coming to you with another question that we get once in a while. We don't get this frequently, thank goodness. But the question has to do with how do you handle bad news? And I don't mean like a bad report or something bad happening on campus. I mean like the news station is in your front lobby and they're running a story on you that is very negative, or like you've got that 1+1 star review on Facebook and they just tell all your dirty business. How do you handle bad news? So I think the first thing that I could recommend with you is that and you know I was I don't want to say I was terrible about this. I was just doing what I was what I thought was right, you know. I think early on, whenever one of these stories would happen, I was like, man, I just got to fix it, you know. I just got to like say the best I can and try to talk to the reporter and try to tell my story, and then you see the story and you're like, oh, they cut out everything that I said that was good. They had their own angle. I'm like, okay, well, this is the fake news, right? Like we didn't call it fake news 15, 20 years ago. And so one of the things that I grossly underestimated was the level of care and compassion that my board and my pastors had toward issues like this. And I guess I felt alone in dealing with these. I didn't feel alone. I guess I felt like man, it's up to me. I just got to take care of it. I don't want them to be burdened by it. I don't want them to have to deal with it. And I underestimated the value of their input, and I underestimated that they wanted to help. They wanted to be a part of it. Now, none of them wanted to go on the news, you know, and none of them wanted to go on Facebook and have to get into an argument or anything like that. But the first thing I would desperately recommend to you is before it even happens today, the next board meeting, just have a little bullet point in there that, hey, look, we're gonna do, how are we gonna do damage control? How are we gonna deal with sensitive stories in the news and different things like that? What should our church's response be, and where is the church going to lie in this? Because a lot of stuff we do here in Phoenix is really kind of geared around protecting our church and protecting the investment of our founding church. And so we want them to always be shown in a good light. We want them to be very proud of what we do, but they recognize too that we serve her people. We've been doing this a long time, almost 25 years out in LA, and stuff happens. My gosh, stuff happens, you know, and some of it is because of your own your team could have done better, you know, and you could have done better, and resources could have been better, you know. Some of it is because of that, but some of it is just like, wow, there's nothing we could have done. Like we did everything right, and here we're the butt of this. So I want to talk about two types of bad news. We kind of categorize it in two ways. So that we deal with, and kind of how we deal with each of these. So one is situational bad news. So we had a fire at our Dream Center here in Phoenix about 2 years ago, and so nobody was hurt in the fire. It was an electrical fire, just an extension cord. I don't know, broke or got ruptured or did something, but it caught stuff on fire. And so the news story wasn't necessarily bad, but it was one of those like, oh God, there's the Dream Center on the front page or on the nightly news, and it's on fire. Like there's smoke everywhere. Like what had happened was the extension cord caught on fire in a utility room. In a storage room of our foster care program, and like, guess what the first thing that burned up was feathers. Do you know how like black the smoke is from feathers? I do. And you know how like high that, oh my gosh, how high that smoke goes? I mean, it was horrible. And so they had this camera shot of like the Dream Center on fire, and like it was a nightmare. Now situational bad stories and bad news, there is a comeback from them, and there is a perspective. My development team, I don't want to say they like bad news, but like they instantly have a plan. Like they're like, okay, we can use this. So yeah, you may have saw the news story about the Dream Center. We need your help today, and if you donate, we're gonna rebuild this room, and they kind of just go right into how do we fix the problem. And a lot of our donor base, they like to see that. They like to see that. What they don't like to see is nothing. They don't like to see it not put anything out. explaining what happened. They like to see something well crafted. So think about your response to situational type things. We've also had situations that were not as simple as a little fire that was on the news. But we had a van rolled over several years ago. Praise God, nothing like this has happened since. But one of our youth vans rolled over, and a girl was thrown out of the car and hurt pretty badly. Now, we did right by her and her family, and it cost us our insurance company, quite frankly. But you do the right thing when that happens. But that was some bad press that we have, and it was found that our driver was at fault for that. He turned left and he crossed traffic, and just the way it all happened. Now, he was heartbroken. We were heartbroken. The girl was in the hospital not too long, but had a broken bone, and of course you hate that, but that's the kind of bad news that you're like, it's situational. Like these things happen to you. And so I think at one level, both of those incidents had to do with insurance and liability and different things. And you probably have someone who is your insurance agent, or who is your risk management agent. We have a risk management agent to help us manage risk, right? And so getting a hold of that person, very often they have messages that you can send out. Hey, this is what we want to say to folks, and honestly, they're usually pretty good. You would think they would be very hands-offish, and we're not responsible, and they signed a waiver, and blah blah blah. But honestly, what we see is they're more crafted, that they care about people, and want to do that. So when situational bad news stories happen, there is a comeback from those. You can craft messages to your donor base that go out. If you want some of those messages that we've sent out before, like for our fire or for our youth, they're on that little jump drive that you can get. And honestly, I would recommend that you run those through your team, your board, or your pastors, or your legal advice team, just to make sure that what works for Arizona laws and limited liability laws and different things may be different for wherever you're at in the country. But you get through it. I think on our team, when both of those incidents happened, nobody really came out and said it, but people were looking for you, the leader, me, to stand up and sort of guide them through that. And it's a little bit of crisis management. It's a little bit of emergency shepherding, and like, hey guys, you know what's going to happen? I think the tendency is, man, you just want to shake the guy that put in the extension cord, and the guy that drove the vehicle, and say, what the heck's wrong with you? And you're putting our whole ministry at you. I mean, those are the thoughts that come. Just those thoughts come naturally through your head. That's just your flesh. But getting composed and getting out of that mode and getting into a mode of, that's a brother, that's a sister, and we got a ministry to them. We got to take care of the family that was hurt, and we got to raise the money. But I need to minister to people along the way, and ministering to everyone on the program team, assuring them, because I mean, think what's going through your team's head there is, in the case of the fire, like my whole team, later they would tell me that, man, we just thought we'd ruined everything, and we thought we were gonna have to close the program down, and like, it was so embarrassing to be on the news and to be on fire, and so you're coming into the situation as the director, and I assure you already have like a lot of guilt and remorse going on in your team, and aside from someone being negligent and rebellious, which I just don't see, aside from that, your role coming in is to minister to them and say, you know what, we're going to get through this. And I don't think I've really tried to hold myself back from saying things like, it's not your fault, and no one could have prevented it, because that may or may not be true, and later, if it was someone's fault, you want to be able to come back with training and say, hey, these are safety tip 101, like, we don't use donated extension cords that have holes in them. Like, how about that? Or let's do a driver's education training program for our people, and just make sure that they know these laws. They may have a license and get on the insurance and have never had a ticket, but have they ever had a like a safe driver course resource. And so those were the follow-ups we did with both of those. But I think the number one thing I found is that you have a whole team looking at you, and you have their attention, and it's an amazing opportunity for you to really shine as a leader and be a ministering spirit unto them. And so situational emergencies do happen, situational things that get you into bad news. Another one that we had was a bed bug issue. Boy, this has been 9-10 years ago. There was a massive epidemic, I would call it, of bed bugs in the lower end hotels here in Phoenix, and but even our mid-level and higher level hotels all had bed bugs. It was the most insane thing. And so the Dream Center had a news story. We were a part of a couple different shelters who were kind of called out for it, and they didn't really call us out or do an investigation or anything, but like, your name was mentioned in terms of bed bug, and it just hurts, and so for that particular case, we worked with my guy who was mentoring me on risk management and things, and we just crafted a simple message to the TV station, and our message got put on, and it was that the Dreams, essentially it's on that chip under risk management file, but essentially what we were saying was, the Dream Center deeply regrets anytime something happens to our people or the diseases that our people have. We serve a lot of people, and one of the things that is not a requirement is that they come to us clean and without disease and without our doors are open to help people. But then I put in there a part about the Dream Center does contract with licensed pest control companies, which we do, and that they've assured us that they have plans and that things are in place, and so we don't believe that this situation is wildly out of control. And so in one sense, we kind of do this, not admitting you're wrong, because I don't know that the lawyers would ever tell you that, but just kind of showing your humanity and saying that, hey, we understand that people were hurt or that something happened, but here are our safety protocols. We do have them. They were in place, and this unfortunate incident still happened. And then finally, you kind of bring it back around and say, we're committed to serving people, and these are hurting people. We always could use more resources, and because people always need help. And so I think one thing that's been beneficial to us, and I'm trying to figure out how to say this, so there's the message that you put out there that gets put up on the screen, and they never put the whole message, or that goes on the internet or whatever. But the way you deliver that message to that reporter or to that news station should have a lot of humanity in it, a lot of humility in it, and a lot of like, God, we're sorry we're even having the conversation. We just care about people. I know Pastor Matthew in LA, we've seen some different things, and his message always was, we're just trying to do better. We're always in a state where we're just trying to do better, and we just care about people. And I'll tell you, when your heart bleeds out like that, whoever that reporter is, a lot of times they see that. But if they see you as defiant, as justifying your actions, even though you might be totally justified, it's totally not your fault, if they see that, I think a lot of times they pick up on that, and they try to capitalize on that because it's sensationalizing the situation, the issue. So situational things will happen to you to get you some bad news. The number two part of this, the other side of this, is client situations can get you bad news and bad press. And so one of the areas is literally clients can go to the news and complain about you, but the other one is a little more real time, and it's when clients will go on Facebook. We probably all had this, and they'll give you a 1 star, and they'll just throw all your dirty laundry out there and be like, this person's doing this and this person's doing this, and there's drugs going on, and you learn stuff about yourself and about other people you never knew, right? And how's this working? So how we handle that is a little different than a situation. When it's a news story, so we had one maybe 4 years ago, and a person went to one of the news stations. She was upset with our program, who had to do a termination with her, and she a whole litany of things that she had done, but because it was kind of an explosive separation, she just felt really empowered and went to the news and was saying all kinds of stuff. Now, the news reporter, of course, called the Dream Center. The call made it up to my office, and so I was talking to the news reporter, and he's telling me, hey, we've got this lady. She came into our station saying a lot of bad stuff about the Dream Center. What's kind of going on up there? And he was kind of wanting me to make a quote about her situation. And so our position on anything like that where a client is involved, we always start with something like this, like I understand the question, I understand what you're asking me, but I would just ask that you understand that it would be completely inappropriate for me to make, as a service provider to a person who was ill or hurting or in some kind of a state, I would say it would be completely inappropriate for me to talk about that person, because inevitably the details of their situation are going to come out. I said, so we have client confidentiality, non-disclosure, and we honor our clients no matter what state that they're in. And if you don't mind, we're going to just keep our clients' information confidential. We care. What I will say though is that we care deeply about all of our clients, and our organization has multiple levels of accountability and checks and balances for the termination process. And so then I've shifted away from what happened to that person, and I've shifted it more toward, this is our process. We have an equal, fair, balanced process, and I explain the process of our appeals and terminations. I have another post about how do you do that part of a program? How do you legally kick people out of your programs and do terminations and suspensions? I mean, these are horrible things, but you got to deal with it, right? And so we shift gears away from comment on that one person, and we shift into our process, which you need to have a fair process. I mean, there's no way of getting around it. If you have a fair process, you talk about your fair process and your practices. And so in our process, I was able to tell this reporter, hey, if anybody gets in trouble for doing anything at the Dream Center, if they disagree or if they feel like they're being subverted in any way, they have the right to appeal to a person who is at a higher level of management. And the reporter was like, okay, well that seems to make sense. And I said, and then if that person, that manager, says the same thing, they have the right to appeal one level higher. And I was like, oh wow. And then I say, and if they don't like that, that's the second layer of appeal. That all of our clients, if it's about a termination and kicking them out, all of our clients have the right to appeal to the executive level. I say to my level, to our executive team's level. And I said, every level in our organization is looking at that situation. And I what I tell him is, I can't comment about this young woman that this woman that you're calling me about. What I can say is that if someone was kicked out of our program and terminated, then they had the right to reach every layer of our organization, and every layer of our organization looked at it through a different lens, through a practical lens, through a how does this affect the rest of the campus lens, and then also at a legal lens. So every different layers in our organization have looked at this thing and have said, we all agree that the offense was so bad, so risky, so hurtful to somebody else that we have no choice. We have to let this person go because their being here is too much risk for our organization. And now you have to kind of walk the line. You don't want to do that sort of shady thing like, she says she got kicked out for drinking alcohol, but she says some other leader was drinking alcohol. And you don't want to like make your example about alcohol, but you say the truth about your process for kicking people out. And then again, you bring it back to, here's a little more about the Dream Center. We serve broken and hurting people, and our goal is to get them into the Dream Center. Our goal is never to kick people out. Like whenever this happens, and I share my heart a little bit and say, my experience is with the leadership here at the Dream Center, when these things happen, we are absolutely heartbroken. Like a lot of our heart and soul has been poured into helping this person get sober and get right, whoever this person is, and whenever we have to separate, like, nobody's sitting around rejoicing, and everybody's heart is broken. And so what you've done, and that's all true, that's truly how I feel, and I'm sharing with you how we handle these things. So what ends up happening is the conversation came at you from a reporter, really wanting to kind of draw you into this battle that the client had drawn them into. And so what you have to do is, first of all, get out of that battle. Get out of that little, you're not there to defend what that person did or didn't do and what your leader did or didn't do to them, or how unfair they were. And you get out of that under the banner of, we respect all of our clients' right to privacy, and we just feel it's inappropriate for us to go and talk about our clients, because most of our clients have pretty severe issues, and it's just not right. We've chosen not to do that. So please forgive me if I don't comment directly on any client. However, here is our process for kicking people out, and you outline a very fair process, and then you end it with, our heart breaks whenever this has to happen. And make sure your heart breaks whenever it has to happen. So that's how we handle news. If it's client generated, if it's Facebook generated, and you're not talking to a person that you can defend that has the right to control it, people just come on and do it. So you get people that come on and maybe they've been kicked out, maybe they didn't get in. We've had that happen before. People are like, oh, they won't take me in, and this is how terrible they are. And so on Facebook, and I mostly talk about Facebook, but this is really any review that's out there for you, Yelp, or I don't know if Yelp reviews shelters. Yeah, they do. Any kind of review that's out there. So most of these platforms, or many of these platforms, have a function where you can turn reviews off. And some ministries, some Dream Centers I know have completely turned it off. And I think that's fair, and that's certainly one way to do it. Certainly you're not going to see any bad reviews, but you're also not going to see any good reviews. And I know with Facebook, like the way sometimes that if you're doing advertising on Facebook and fundraising, if you have a lot of negative reviews, sometimes your advertising gets pushed down, and so you're essentially, to them, you're a product, and so sometimes the algorithm will push you up if you have higher reviews. So what we've chosen to do, what we've been advised to do by a marketing company we work with, and the path we've decided to go, is to just allow all reviews to come on. Now, all positive reviews, it's equally important to create a positive environment for positive reviews, but all positive reviews, you want to tell them thanks and what a blessing it is for you to review us, and these things go. So you want to foster that environment, but you're going to get the negative ones too. We answer everyone, and so the negative reviews, again, it's a little different format, because what you're posting is out there for everybody to see. So you can't really acknowledge, when you were in the program, man, you were hitting on girls and drunk every night, and that's why you're kicked out. Like, if you want to go there, right? You want to, like, no, wait a minute, buddy. Like, this is what you do. Like, that's where your head goes, or your flesh goes. But where you need to go is, again, more to that helpful. You want people to see your broken heart for this situation. That's what you want people to see. And if it doesn't break your heart, man, that's a whole nother video. But you care about people, right? Like, you care that these are God's people, and that something happened, no matter what it was, our fault, their fault, whatever, that something happened, we're now not able to serve that person. Like, that's absolutely heartbreaking. And so that's what you want people to see. We've been advised, and at first I didn't get it, but I kind of get it now. We've been advised, try not to do just the canned speech thing, like, we've taken your review into consideration, and please call this number for whatever. I mean, you can do that, and I think that's better than ignoring it, because bear in mind, people are going to see this negative review, and they're going to be like, well, what they say about that? Like, donors are going to look at this, and other people who are coming in your program are going to look at this, and everybody has everybody reads reviews, by the way, not everybody, but people are accustomed now to reading reviews. So this is not a foreign thing. So they're on Amazon reading reviews, and so they see bad reviews just like they see good ones. And somewhere in people's minds, we've kind of trained ourselves to look for the stupid ones. We're like, oh, well, that guy's whatever. He probably works for the other company, or oh, that's just totally not cool. But if there's legitimate substance to it, you want to have an answer. And so what our marketing company, third party that works for us, what they've recommended we do is that we have a heartfelt answer back. Hey, how do they have it? It's on that chip under risk management, but they have us saying something like this, like thanks for the reply. We've not found this to be the case, but we are sorry that you had a bad experience, and then hit it, and then block them, and that takes out any future. Because I don't think you can just delete. You can't just delete the negative comments. But wouldn't that be nice? We'd all do that. But you can answer it and then block it. And so we do that as best we can. I will say that most of the bad ones that are out there that we get, we know the person, and somebody on our staff knows. And if it's possible for us, and we don't serve thousands and thousands of clients a year, but we'll house about 1,000 clients a year, 950, 1,000 clients a year. And so it's not unreasonable, and we don't kick out all of them, thank goodness, but it's not unreasonable for someone on our staff to really know and have connected with that person. And a lot of times we'll say, hey, Luke, you mind reaching out to him and just seeing what we can do to help, and somewhere along the journey, like, ask them to pull that review down, because they can pull the review down. So that's happened. But if that can't happen, you can go in, have an answer that tells your heart. Now, I think the company we work with advises us to block it, just because honestly, whatever you say, that's not going to be the end of the conversation, right? Like, then there's going to be something else and something else and something else. But if you block it, it clips it off, it closes it. So anybody that does see it, they just see that part. They just see that a complaint was made. You've said that you've received it. You've acknowledged that you don't believe that's everybody's experience, and then in the end, you've said, we're really sorry you had this experience, and share your heart, and some variation of that. And so that's how we handle bad news. I will say that it's a whole nother segment to talk about how you handle good news, but and how you capitalize on good news. How do you use PR to build your brand, to do fundraising, so news stories about you, and then how do you actually get donations from that and things. And so on the next segment, we're going to talk a little bit more about how do you use good news stories. But that's how we handle bad news stories. I think the one other thing I'll say is prayer is a powerful thing, and I think if it weren't for your prayer life and Jesus being at the heart of it all, driving you, you'd never be able to be that ministering spirit to your staff when a bad news story happens. And honestly, it's sometimes probably been the only thing that's kept me from starting my own fake Facebook page and just ramming that person. One other thing I'll say about that, I am always moved that every time, and it's not very often, it's maybe 3 a year, we'll get 3 bad Facebook reviews a year. Every time graduates from our program come to our, not rescue, but they chime in and say, that's not right, that's not what you're saying about the Dream Center. So don't underestimate the good people that are out there that love you, and I think that's very touching to me, because you see one person's bad review, and my gosh, your heart breaks, and you're like, I mean, for me, first of all, I'm like, oh geez, why? They're a hurting person, now they're hurting other people, and that's us, and then your thought is, my God, how do I get this off Facebook, right? But I think that your prayer life, staying centered and focused on Jesus, and realizing that yes, this too will come to pass, and somehow, I think that's the key to this whole thing, somehow He could even use this for your good. And so pray that He'll guide you in that. God bless you guys. I hope this has been helpful. Bye-bye.